Federal Migration Service has confirmed publicly that they have issued Mr. Snowden temporary asylum for 1 year and allowed him to leave the airport. We are extremely disappointed that the Russian government would take this step despite our very clear and lawful requests in public and in private to have Mr. Snowden expelled to the United States to face the charges against him.
Terror threats closing our embassies. Russia thumbing its nose at us and granting temporary asylum to Edward Snowden. Just 2 more for the loss column when it comes to President Obama's foreign policy. With me, Democratic strategist Ryan Clayton and Republican strategist and Fox News contributor Tony Syed. All right, good evening, gentlemen. Ryan, I'm going to go right to you. The Muslims have always wanted us out of the Middle East, so here we are, poof, gone. Did they get their wish, Ryan?
Well, you know, I have a lot of family that lives in the Middle East, actually, and prior to the Bush administration, living in places like Jordan or Abu Dhabi was, you know, okay. You could be there, you could be an American, it was okay to walk on the street. But after the President George W. Bush administration, which really just trashed our international reputation, it's a lot harder to live in places like that. And I think what we're finally starting to see is some of the eventual results of his broken foreign policy.
This is Bush's fault, too? You are not allowed to say that on my show. Bush is not the one who's
the truth.
By the way, President Obama is the one who's got us into a third war, said he closed Gitmo and then didn't, and keeps sending them all of these F-16s and everything else. So, Ryan, let's focus on the question. They want us out, and we've never in the history of this country closed as many embassies and consulates as we have now. It's like we're turning tail and running. Yes or no?
Well, the temporary closing of American embassies in the Middle East is really what a president would do in the face of such of a threat. You know, I mean, if we were told that there's an imminent threat or there's an imminent danger, what you would expect the American president to do is to close those temporarily to protect the lives of Americans serving abroad. And that's exactly what Obama has done in this case. It's the right thing to do. Well, I don't know why all these Republican operatives are trying to stir up trouble and point the finger at him before anything bad has even gone wrong.
I wish Obama would get involved in some of the trouble, like sending over people to secure Americans on that rooftop in Benghazi. But, Tony, talk to me. Isn't this proof that, you know, the Muslims are getting exactly what they want?
Well, Judge, when President Obama was elected, he went to Cairo, he gave a speech. This is, of course, his first trip. It was called the Apology Tour. On that trip to the Middle East, he, of course, skipped over Israel. He went to predominantly Muslim countries. In that speech, he asked for what was called a new beginning. And I'm sure in Harvard and academia and among progressives like Ryan, that seemed like it was a smart move to win us friends in the Muslim world. Well, guess what? Not at all. It showed a softer line. And what have we seen since the time President Obama has become president? A nuclear Iran, Syria unleashing mass carnage and chaos among its people. We're not responding. Russia's dictating Middle East policy. We've totally taken a backseat to the Russians and the Europeans for the first time in the history of the United States protecting our interests in the Middle East. We've undermined our biggest ally, Israel, by saying they should go back to the 67 borders. And what did we do in Egypt? We threw out Hosni Mubarak, the only stabilizing force who was our ally for decades.
And now he's out. But, Ryan, let me ask you a question. Isn't it true that this apology tour and not responding to Benghazi and, you know, all of these weak paper threats have emboldened some of these Al-Qaeda and its affiliates in the Maghreb and in North Africa?
Well, I think what, you know, national security advisors for many years now, such as Richard Clarke and other folks that have had a real eye on the situation in the Middle East say, is that when we go over and we bomb countries into rubble and we bomb them back to medieval times, that creates a lot of people that get very angry at us. And so it's essentially a terrorism factory, what we've been doing in Iraq and in Afghanistan and throughout the Middle East. And if we keep blowing things up there and blowing people up there, there's going to be a lot of angry people at us.
Judge. What about the drone strikes? Isn't it Obama who's doing the drone strikes? Isn't it Obama who said he was going to close Gitmo and never did? Isn't it Obama who said that, who expanded the NSA? But let me have you answer.
Judge, he upped the drone strikes. President Obama has actually been more aggressive in the use of drones than President George W. Bush.
Ryan, according to your thinking, then it's got to be the President Obama's fault.
Well, what I want to ask Tony is, do you want us to stop the drone strikes then? I mean, I would agree with that.
I actually support it.
Okay.
Not at all. In fact, I would say the only successes that the president's had in foreign policy has been the continuation of the successful Bush policies, like drone strikes, like using the intelligence that we got from enhanced interrogation to capture and kill Osama bin Laden.
And what I would say, and what I would say is when you break,
I want to hear this. Go ahead,
and
Ryan.
what I would say is when you break the Geneva Conventions and you start torturing people and you start blowing up people in other parts of the country with drone strikes, you're essentially creating a terrorism factory. That is what people who are actually involved in national security
We'll take
say.
that up with President
Break those
Obama.
rules.
But Judge, both ways, Ryan.
Could we bring this back to Benghazi real quick? It's a very important matter to remember. We've still not done anything to respond to the Benghazi attacks. We know Ansar al-Sharia was responsible for it. They took the credit for doing it. What have we learned from al-Qaeda? After 9/11, when we investigated it, we realized that the embassy bombings in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam were the canaries in the coal mine. And then the USS Cole bombed in the port of Aden. They knew when America didn't respond then that they could do it again. We've not deterred any al-Qaeda-related threats on our embassies, and that's why you have to close 22 because of a threat.
Ryan, last word, real fast.
Well, you know what I want to say is that the #1 terrorist attack on American soil happened under the watch of the last Republican president, George W.
That's
Bush.
a low blow,
when we were
Ryan.
attacked.
You really should be a little more unified about it.
It's the truth.
All right, I told you this wasn't about George Bush.
That's when it happened.
You know what? And maybe next week we'll talk about
Iran wasn't nuclear under George Bush. Remember that one.
Love you both. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Judge.
And remember to vote in our Instapoll. Has Obama's foreign policy made us safer? Send me your comments on Twitter at Judge Jeanine or on Facebook, and we may use your answer a little later. And real trouble for the so-called real housewife. Reality bites.